everyone, Linda Loveland here. We are in Henderson County with Trey Enloe at Bright Branch Farms. As you can imagine, we've had a warm winter followed by a really cold beginning to a spring, well not quite spring, daylight saving time, and it's like below freezing. But here in Henderson County, of course, where there are apples and cherries and all that kind of good stuff, in some danger from the cold weather we've been having. So Trey, we're next to a cherry tree. Tell me what you guys have been experiencing so far. I know this all just sort of started, but what are you seeing so far?
Yeah, so we had, like you said, we had a very warm winter, so that causes action to happen a lot earlier than we want in several crops. A cherry blooms early naturally, but we're still probably about 2 to 3 weeks ahead of a typical bloom. So obviously when things get out there and exposed, they're a little more tender and you know, susceptible to those cold temperatures. So we get some temperatures like last night in the 20s, and it can really do some damage on things. So.
Now it feels really cold now. We talked about the wind chill and all that, but the wind is really blowing, but that's actually helpful. It
is, yeah. So cold air settles. The warm air from up above, the wind kind of brings that in and mixes it around and actually helps us out a little bit. So if it gets too cold, you're not going to do a whole lot, but it could help buy you a degree or two.
Now there are a few more days, I guess, of this, and you haven't really checked for any damage, so you don't know how well you've done from last night. But
yeah, so we can pinch a few. So we've got tonight's cold, tomorrow's cold, and then the next day. So what happens is you can pinch these guys, and usually whenever you see damage, it'll turn brown. It may be too early in the day to see any of that right now, gotcha. But usually when it gets frozen, those cells in there burst, and you can actually see them browning up instead of that nice green color there. So right now those look okay. We'll check those again later in the day and see what happens. Obviously we've got 2 or 3 days of potential cold weather, so we'll see how things work out.
I guess you probably lose some almost every year, don't you? I mean,
we do, and part of that's natural. So most tree fruits tend to overproduce their crop. So we thin them off. If they don't get thinned off naturally, we thin them off as well. So a little bit of cold doesn't hurt us. It'll thin the crop to kind of where we want it. A lot of cold can be detrimental, especially on small fruits. It takes a lot of volume, in something like cherries or blueberries to make a packable portion there. So if you lose 50-60% of a small fruit crop, it can really make a difference. Whereas large fruits like apples, sometimes that thinning effect, the fruit will grow actually larger, and you don't reduce your volume quite as much. At a certain critical temperature, you do get major losses. So hopefully we can avoid that.
Yeah. All right. Well, good luck. I know you've got a few days left, and then you said you even looked farther ahead, maybe even next week.
Yeah, I think
potentially again.
Yeah, we got 3 days here, and then I think 2 or 3 days next week. So we're not out of the woods typically till about mid-May, somewhere in there. So we can sweat it a while.
That's a lot of time too. And you said about 100 acres of how many different varieties and cherries too?
We grow about 50 different varieties of apples. Most of our acreage is in apples. We also do some cherries, peaches, blueberries, pumpkins, and a few other things.
Well, good luck.
Well, thank you.
Thinking about you.
All right.
Thanks, Trey.
Yeah.